Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Let's go ahead now and establish our refuge and cultivate bodhicitta. Taking just a moment after our meditation to bring to mind the Buddha in the space in front of you. And let us begin. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. Well, what a joy it is to be with you, virtually anyway. I'm recording this this morning, and you'll be hearing it this evening. I'll be traveling once again to Texas. So I wanted to make sure to record the teaching in case I didn't get there in time to be live with you. I do hope this finds you all well. I hope your year is off to a good start, that you're taking good care of yourselves and good care of those around you. Well, in the text that we are engaged with, approaching this Buddhist path, we just covered this piece around how to really cultivate these positive qualities, these constructive qualities of loving kindness, compassion. We spent some time on how to work with afflictive emotions, afflictive mental states. And then we start now with these more constructive attitudes and heart-opening practices. We did the just like me last time. And the idea here is what I water grows. So I don't always need to be playing defense, working with afflictive emotions, struggling with anger, resentment, frustration, that I actually can be watering and growing the seeds of compassion, loving kindness, a positive mental state, which is very different than just, it's all good. It's actually not all good. There's struggling, there's suffering. The Buddhist teachings explain that the very nature of samsara is filled with suffering. Its very nature is suffering and struggle. But in that suffering and struggle, we have incredible resources. And there's opportunities in the current human birth that we have to be free of all this suffering, to cultivate a real understanding of ourselves and our experience, to understand the causes of suffering, the causes of well-being, real genuine happiness, how to engage in this life in a meaningful way, and how to transform this life to freedom, to liberation, to no more suffering. So yes, there's some real difficult things here. And there's also some real opportunities here. So we can cultivate this mind of wisdom, this mind of understanding, and we water it with these seeds of compassion, loving kindness. Last week, we expanded our view of others. Instead of just caring about ourselves or the people close to us in our lives, people we care about, we expanded this out to people that we're fairly neutral about and the people that we struggle with, people we are challenged by. And that's really the core here, is this idea of equanimity with others, not just equanimity with the events that happen in our lives, a real sense of equality, that everyone's life is valuable, everyone's life is meaningful. And while others may be doing harmful actions and really creating a lot of damage in the world, if we understand that that's due to their own imprisoned conditioning, their own confusion, their own struggles, their own misguided ways of seeking happiness, and we can understand how karma works and the damage they're doing to themselves, the struggles that they're going to have, well, then we can have compassion arise and we can engage with them, holding them accountable and their behaviors, but without ill will, without wanting them to suffer, without that mental state that causes suffering in ourselves and others, but with some wisdom, some compassion, some understanding. And so our interactions and how to improve the world, how to work with people who are harming the world, doesn't need to be this, ill will, bitter, resentful state of mind, but rather a mind of compassion, of wisdom, of understanding, and skillful activities. Yeah, we need to change this behavior. We need to work with what's happening here. Excuse me, just a moment. There we go. So, what a different mind that we can bring to a situation, instead of resentment and anger, one of understanding, compassion. We're going to be much more capable to improve situations and for ourselves to suffer less, potentially to have others suffer less. So in the text, we were bringing this mind of compassion. Let me pop it up here. Backtrack just a moment. Said initially the feelings of impartial love or compassion that arise in the depths of our hearts will only last a short while. So as we do this practice, this Just Like Me practice that we posted, and really start recognizing the value in others and opening up our hearts, we can get some feelings of care, even for some people we don't like. And again, it's important to start with people that we kind of struggle with a little bit, and seeing if we can understand them or understand that they struggle, and then kind of work our way up to some people we may have some stronger feelings about. So initially only a short while. At this level, they are still contrived in that we have to make an effort to experience them. However, through habituation, the time will come when, as soon as we see even a small insect, feelings of love and compassion for it will arise spontaneously and effortlessly. This new experience manifests as a result of having made an effort over a long period of time. Such mental transformation brings about an enduring change in our moods and emotions. So as we read this, it may jump to mind like, wow, that is a big goal. And the thing to remember is every journey begins with the first step. Rather than think, wow, that seems beyond my reach, well, let's start with, can I be a little kinder to some people around me? Can I be a little more thoughtful and curious about their struggles? Can I recognize that others are like me, struggling to find a way to be healthier? And just like me, others are wanting their kids to be healthy and well and live in a safe environment, get their needs met. And as I engage like this and kind of notice others, whether they're an animal, a human, that their life is valuable. To them, their life is the most important thing. And so we just start with this journey a little bit at a time. And what they're sharing here is that over time, we can actually get to this other point of really recognizing the value in all beings. And here I think it's important. So often, some Buddhist teachings can get watered down, to just be a good person, which is important. I mean, ultimately, to be a good person. But we don't bring up the real potential, because it seems so far away. What if we just kept an open mind and go, there are actually others who have been like this, who have that kind of mind, who have that kind of heart. Others that have engaged in this path, that have achieved awakening. And the point is, they're no different than you, right? They're no different than you. The Buddha nature of the Dalai Lama is no different than your Buddha nature. He doesn't have more than we do. We have just as much. It's no different. He's just able to see it and know it. And, that's for us to also be able to cultivate, to recognize. And so it's, I think, important to know that there's potentials here, that we're open to it, rather than just kind of closing us off and just holding it there. Yeah, we're not there. We're right here. So let's work with what we have, but know that there is an opportunity as we engage in this to have a very different mind towards others, towards ourselves. And this develops over time. My own personal experience, though I'm far from having that kind of heart and mind that they're talking about, is I am significantly better than I used to be. And this has softened over time. And there are things that I once thought were just, beyond my comprehension, beyond my capacity. And I just focused on being a little more ethical, a little kinder, a little more mindful. And what I've discovered years later is that things I once thought of as impossible are just more naturally who I am today. So still have a long way to go, but it's nice to recognize that some things that once seemed pretty far away are just more how I see the world and my experience now. And so that's bringing up this point. How does that happen? Let's pull up the text again here. Scientists and Buddhists agree that habituation is necessary for long-lasting change in our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to occur. When we practice something repeatedly, it becomes part of our temperament. Buddhists describe this as a process of habituating ourselves with new emotional responses. Scientists explain this as building up new neural pathways in the brain. When a certain pathway associated with an emotion is well lubricated, that emotion arises more easily. So here's this process of becoming familiar with, cultivating these qualities, and we're doing it intentionally initially. This is how, now we know about neural pathways. We know how we can actually change the structure of our brain, how we can be a participant in how we experience the world. Now, Buddhists have been doing this for, thousands of years. And when we just call it habituation, familiarization, gom, actually gom, which means to meditate in Tibetan, is to become familiar with, So in meditation, one becomes familiar with the mind, one becomes familiar with this practice of whatever they're meditating on, becoming deeply familiar with that object of meditation. Well, we also become familiar with these emotions. We become familiar with a different response to situations. And this is done through habituation, through practice, through familiarization. So again, gom, meaning meditation, is one of the tools that we can use. we have already shared the transforming unskillful events meditation. I did create a new recording for that, actually, over the retreat, over the new year. It was actually at the end of year retreat. So I'll post that in our community as a little extra piece there to kind of dive a little bit in with some wisdom. And if I do this daily, well, I'm going to be able to work with difficult situations, how I'd like to respond, and habituate myself in responding in this healthier, more meaningful way for me. So that's one practice, right? Transforming unskillful events. Purification practice, another one. 4 opponent powers of purification. And this Just Like Me that was just recently posted last week. These are practices to help bring ourselves into situations and to seeing the world in a healthier way, in a more productive way, understanding ourselves and others in a more realistic way. And this is the antidote, right, to our reactive, habitual way of experiencing ourselves and others, and how we label others, how easily we get frustrated, how we can get triggered in different ways. And the positive thing here, the plus, is it's totally doable. This is how it works. We just do it. It's like anything else in our lives. If you practice, you'll get better at it. If you do it repeatedly, it becomes habitual. Doesn't matter whether you're learning to drive, or learning to write a bike, playing a musical instrument, learning a language. As you do it more, it becomes much more effortless for you. Downside, don't do it. Well, then we kind of get stuck in our habituated way of reactivity and misperception and resentments, frustrations, the afflictions that we nurture because they're already pretty habitual. So they're pretty well worn. So creating these new grooves, that's that analogy I use all the time, like a marble in a groove. We have this sort of habit and way of seeing ourselves, how we respond, this marble in this well-worn groove. And what we're doing each day is pushing that marble out, creating a different habit, starting with meditation in the morning, a little prayer, a little, intention about loving kindness or engaging in one of these practices. And we're pushing that marble out. We're starting this new groove. And, science call this new neural pathways. But they're weak. And, the marble will fall back. The other neural pathways are very strong. The other habits are very strong. The groove is very deep. No big deal. We just push it out again. Falls back. No big deal. Push it out again. And the key is not to get frustrated with ourselves or disappointed with ourselves or hopeless with ourselves when it falls back. That's just the nature. That the point is that we keep pushing it out and that we can push it out. And then over time, this marble will start creating a new groove, right? New neural pathways. And this becomes a little groove in here that becomes much more natural, much more a part of how we experience ourselves and others. We respond much quicker with compassion instead of anger. We respond in ways that are constructive instead of destructive. We build up an incredible amount of resilience with whatever life's throwing at us. And we have this capacity. That just takes a little practice daily. And then we don't always need to wait till the morning to push the marble out. We can do that during the day. It's important, these practices to engage throughout the day in them. So making those appointments with yourself, I believe I talked about that last week, just setting some times throughout the day to remember. that you have an opportunity to cultivate the qualities of mind that are helpful for you, and to be a little more mindful, a little more compassionate, a little more loving and kind, a little more resilient, a little more resourceful. So pausing, making appointments with yourself throughout the day. All right, let's take a look at the last paragraph here. Although Buddhism emphasizes cultivating love and compassion for others, we must not neglect ourselves. The happiness of others is one of our goals, so we must take care of ourselves so that we will have the physical energy and the mental clarity to benefit them. If we ignore our own welfare, not only will we be unable to benefit others, they will have to take care of us. Wow, there's a little piece of information, right? We wear ourselves down. Not only are we not helpful, we actually are becoming a burden. So this is something we frequently talk about, is a tendency of ourselves to not take care of ourselves, and to sometimes have a very critical voice about who we are, about our capacities, about, excuse me, about our way of being in the world, self-critical voice. Can anyone relate to that? Can we get down on ourselves? So number one, we really want to eliminate that self-critical voice. And that's something, again, with practice, noticing it, being aware of that. And where's that self-critical voice? That's nothing other than my mental afflictions. That's, this voice of grasping, of clinging, of fear, of insecurity. Don't need to listen to our afflicted mental states. But easier said than done. So noticing it when it comes up and recognizing, just labeling, oh, that's just myself. I wouldn't even say my, but just notice, that's self-critical. I'm not helpful to myself or others with that voice. It's this idea of labeling, self-critical voice. That's just self-criticism. As soon as you label it, that's self-criticism. Well, you're identifying that it's not you. It's just an afflictive state. And it allows it to drop more quickly. So labeling it might pop up many times, just label it. We have these practices of labeling, whether it's worry, just worry. As soon as you label it, it's not you, it's just worry. Rumination, resentment, those things arising in the mind. They're just arising in the mind. They're arising out of habit, out of tendencies. So if I can label them, when they arise, whether it's resentment, whether it's anger, whether it's self-critical voices, well, at that point, there's no harm done. Anger rising, no harm done. How I engage with it is where, I'm either being constructive or destructive. So as a self-critical voice arises, I don't need to go with it. I don't need to engage with it. I just notice self-critical voice. And then as soon as you notice it, you might even give yourself a pat on the back. I noticed that. That's wisdom. What's noticing that? Right? Your awareness, your deeper awareness is noticing the self-critical voice. So suddenly we're tapping into our wisdom. A little pat on the back, good stuff. So habituating ourselves to this, to being mindful, to being aware of the thoughts that come up, and to understand I don't need to engage with them in unhealthy ways. Anger arising, let it arise, let it come, let it go. Don't need to react. Experience it, don't stuff it, don't deny it. It's just passing through. there might be some good information about that. Why, what's up with the anger here? What am I afraid of? What am I feeling I'm not getting? What's being thwarted in my life? Just being aware of that. Now there's some insight, some wisdom. So these thoughts, afflictions, they arise, and we can be very skillful about how we respond or not respond to them. So those were parts of working with the afflictions. As we water now these more constructive attitudes around loving kindness, around compassion, around recognizing the value of others and ourselves, and that our Buddha nature is no different than the Dalai Lama's Buddha nature. Well, that's what we want to nurture and grow, because then those kinds of thoughts will arise. Those kinds of emotions will arise. Basically remembering what we water grows. So if we understand that our mental continuum, our thoughts, attitudes that arise, we're not consciously usually having them arise, right? They're just happening. I'm feeling surprised. I'm feeling worried. Whatever is coming up is coming up. Well, the more that I now engage in morning and evening practices around loving kindness or compassion, guess what will pop up more often? Compassion, loving kindness, equanimity, resilience, seeing things in this new perspective. And it just simply happens by practicing, by habituating our hearts and minds with these attitudes and thoughts. And so that's what's being shared here. But that's going to be much more effective if we can do that with ourselves. So we need to recognize that we are valuable, that we have Buddha nature, that I am not broken, I'm not beyond repair, that underneath these afflictions is Buddha nature, that my very nature is this great compassion, that my very nature is wise, that is my nature. And these, what we may call mistakes or poor choices or, reactivity, that's all the afflictive states. That's the work to be done. So when those arise, rather than being hard on ourselves, well, wow, I noticed that. Okay, that's not who I am. That's the work to be done. And everybody's got those. Everybody's got these afflictions. Everybody is struggling in samsara. And we're not any less than anyone else. We're not more than anyone else either. However, we are more fortunate than most because we now have this path. We now have these skills being offered to us. We now have an opportunity that very few have available to them. So let's not squander that opportunity by self-judgment or self-deprecation, self-critical voices. Let's just catch that and label them. Recognize underneath this your Buddha nature. Recognize your desire to be of benefit to yourself and others. Maybe you haven't got the one to be yourself yet, but let's make sure to include that. And so in this section, if we start to recognize there's a couple things going on. One is watering, nurturing, understanding our heart and mind of compassion, loving kindness, our wisdom, that we're applying that daily, then those become our natural way of being. Working with the afflictive states as they arise, applying the antidotes, not reacting in ways that are unhealthy, to the best of our ability, being gentle with ourselves when we do react in difficult situations in unhealthy ways, understanding, okay, how can I learn from this? So on one hand, we're responding to the afflictions with the good medicine of Dharma. On the other hand, we're doing the healthy stuff. It's kind of like the health food, the exercise, for our body. We're doing this for our hearts and minds. So we want a healthy diet of loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. Those are the three key ingredients, all of which are based in virtue. So being very clear about what to avoid, non-virtuous actions, being very clear about what to cultivate, virtuous actions, then these become much more of who we are, and we're much more capable of responding with the afflictive states. So my encouragement is that you take a little time to integrate these practices of just like me, transforming unskillful events, of purification practice for opponent powers into our lives in a more frequent, regular way. And every evening we can be purifying, so we can be doing it for opponent powers or transforming unskillful events. Mornings, just like me. And once you've done the full meditation practice, which is, like 24 minutes, I believe, we don't always need to do that every day. Once we've done that a few times, just, looking at those verses or bring them to mind, just like me, only takes a minute or two, a couple of minutes. Yeah, probably more than a minute, a couple of minutes. Then, it's just this reminder. It's this reminder. We've already had the experience with the deeper meditation. And little reminders about this rare and precious human birth we have that comes only once, this day that comes only once. What do I want to grow? What do I want to nurture? Making these appointments throughout the day of, maybe saying a mantra, reading these verses, maybe just like me. In other words, making time to water, nurture, and grow these thoughts and attitudes in your hearts and minds. A steady diet throughout the day, not just a buffet in the morning. This is really going to make a big difference. So it's nice to, pick even just a verse. Sometimes at the 8 verses of thought transformation, people, do one of those verses for the week and, really get to know it. What we water grows, but we need to water it. We need to bring these attitudes, these perspectives, these thoughts that we want to grow in our hearts and minds so that they habitually just arise. It's a pretty straightforward process like that. Okay, well, I actually may end here since the next part of the book actually goes into the next section that wouldn't have time to get too involved with. So what I'd like to do is just encourage you to have a little discussion with each other. Oh, excuse me. So sorry about that. Have a little discussion with each other, and based on the teachings here, based on your practice with just like me or the transforming and skillful events, I will post the new version here in the Way of Compassion community. I'll post that and see what you can do. Make a commitment to make some appointments with yourself throughout the day, times where you can check in and water the seeds of loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom in ways that are meaningful for you. All right, well, let us now dedicate the merit and the wisdom that we've already cultivated in our time together. I will pop that up on the screen so we can dedicate together. Taking just a moment to be in this moment. What a gift it is to support each other in this path of understanding, of loving kindness and compassion, this path of freedom, and our ability to be a benefit to all sentient beings. Let us dedicate any and all merit that we have cultivated for the benefit of others and for our own continued spiritual growth. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Well, thank you all so much. Such a joy that we get to do this every Wednesday, whether I'm physically there or not. I don't know. I think I get more than you know out of this. You support me in my practice as much as I'm doing anything to support you. So I'm very grateful for all of you. Please be well. Take good care of yourselves and good care of those around you. And please stay on a little bit, share with each other. And thank you, Rachel, and Sam, for all you do.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare